Intel's primarily known for its hardware products, particularly its CPUs, yet Intel has a very strong presence in the software industry. Joining me now is Jeff McVeigh, who oversees Intel's software engineering group. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Krista.
Before we dive deep into Intel's software strategy, tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry as a whole, and maybe some of the challenges you're seeing.
Yeah, that's a great starting point. This is one of the most exciting times to be in the computing industry because of the amazing demand for compute. Generative AI has swept the nation, the world, in terms of the capabilities it can provide for many commercial and consumer use cases, but also enterprises are trying to figure out, how do I actually use this for business results? How can it help me do my code development faster? How can it help me make business decisions more effectively? How can it help me with content creation?
So Jeff, Intel's hardware and software complement each other. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, let me just first start about how does software augment hardware and software together into solutions? The way I like to think of it is hardware is oftentimes like a human analogy. Your muscles or your heart, it provides the strength to deliver things. But without a brain, there's not much value there. And software is really sort of that interface between how humans can connect to computing hardware and do that through the software capabilities that we provide. Now, Intel has a long history, and we often focus at low levels of the software. How do we enable the hardware with firmware or BIOS or operating system enablement? We also do many other layers of the software stack as well. How do you do optimization with different libraries? How do those plug into frameworks like PyTorch is one key area in the AI space. And then also getting to commercial solutions to make it easily deployed. So Intel's approach really is, it's not just the hardware by itself, and it's not just even the software that runs on our hardware, because one of your most important investments is that software. And if you lock yourself into a proprietary vertical solution stack, you're kind of stuck there. And it's really better to have choice, availability for other options as those evolve and those progress from a competitive standpoint. So our view is providing openness, choice, while also making sure that it is securely deployed. And that's how we approach all of our work.
So Jeff, I hear you talk a lot about open source. Can you share a little bit about some of the projects you're working on, and why is that so important to Intel's strategy?
I mentioned earlier about the challenges that enterprises are facing to deploy AI for their business value. And one of the realizations that we had in customer conversations is really, what's the problem? What's causing it to be difficult? And it's really the complexity of the systems. And one kind of common blueprint that we've seen out there is retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And that's a very popular use case of being able to apply large language models that are more generally trained, but applied to my own data, and doing that in a secure fashion using kind of the vector databases and other capabilities on the platform, and utilizing that to have a closer context to information that's important for my enterprise. What we also realized was there's so many different choices out there, it's hard for an enterprise to decide which one of these is the best for me. There's no compliance, certification. I don't really know if it's secure, truly keeping my data secure. So we joined together with a large number of companies already for a project that we call the Open Platform for Enterprise AI. And that's now a Linux Foundation project. That's sort of where it was initiated. We're getting great contributions from other companies, and as well as other parts of the ecosystem to deploy this. It's not about Intel's problem we're trying to solve, it's about the customer's problems that we're trying to solve. And that's why it's so important. This is a good example to bring out these open source platforms and projects so that we can help solve the industry's problems.
Talk to me a little bit about our customers. What are we doing to really listen to our customers? Who are they, and what do they want?
Yeah. We could have a long conversation here. We have many different types of customers. Some of them are direct customers, which are the OEMs who develop systems themselves and plugging into that. But then we really need to think about their customers, the end users. How does a consumer use their browser for doing generative AI, for creating some new content? How does an enterprise need to deploy for their employee relations software? How does a cloud service provider need to deliver services that can scale to millions of users concurrently? So really thinking about it from one customer standpoint is not satisfactory. We need to really think about these different segments, who are the different developer types across them, and then how do we listen to what their needs are and again, drive that down into the hardware, but make the software visible for that.
So talk to me a little bit about how Intel software fits into Intel's transformation that we're hearing a lot about these days.
Yeah, well, one of their big transformations is our focus on our foundry business and making sure that we've got leading edge process technology for manufacturing for Intel's products as well as the industry at large. The other side is really our products. And products here is really the full system. It's not just the individual component, but how does a CPU, GPU, interconnect, storage, all those come together. And then the software provides the glue between them, making it data be able to be transferred between those different components effectively. And then also how do those plug into applications and services that you'd find on your desktop computer, in a browser, in a cloud service provider. So really providing that top to bottom software stack and looking at it from the outside in. It's not just we create a new piece of hardware and we turn on some feature and hope that it's valuable, but really looking at it from, well, what's the starting point from the software? What hardware features will accelerate that software? And coming in from the top, the use case is driving that down into the hardware and then bubbling back up through the software.
Jeff, how broad is Intel's software portfolio? Where does it begin? Where does it end? And is it going to get wider over the years?
Starting from kind of reversing my earlier point, let's just start closest to the hardware because that's without that, nothing can start. So it's lower levels of the software in terms of its firmware, being able to control the hardware itself. Next layers of the operating system. This is Linux, Windows, obviously. We also support Chrome OS on Chromebooks. We even do Android on Windows. So a very large set of operating system support that we provide. Not only optimizations of those for Intel's platforms, but also new feature capabilities and making sure that those are secure. On top of that, we have libraries. One of our main initiatives is what we call One API, is making that easily supported across a variety of back-end hardware, not just for Intel hardware, but also third-party hardware. And that's one of the Linux Foundation's projects. We call it the UXL, or Unified Acceleration Libraries. This enables things across high-performance computing, AI, video and image processing, and so forth. Compilers, analysis tools are another critical area. Then we get into virtualization, orchestration software, Kubernetes, cloud-native software, and then the web stack. And there's a lot of innovation that's happening there, specifically on the client side for browser-based AI. So WebNN is another key project that we're a major contributor to, is a great example of our openness approach. And then on top of that, we're building out more complete blueprints and solutions that are not only for Intel customers, but also from a commercial standpoint. And that's where the Tiber line of products come into play from Intel.
And we will hear more about Intel Tiber in our next video. So thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you giving us this great insight into Intel software strategy.
Happy to do it. Thanks, Krista.
Thanks.